Volume 1, Love, Pain, and Other Addictions. Author's Manifesto. What students do when the last lecture ends? Do they work? Do they travel? Do they go home to study urgently? Do they write? In my case, the last two statements are right nowadays. I write. I have been writing poetry literally my whole life, and prose loved me 5 years ago. I was extremely surprised by the negative reception of this book. Published book was published on Wattpad in 2019. These poems have been appreciated and awarded in the past already. Therefore, in this short text, I would like to present readers my creative journey. Maybe a lack of context is sometimes harmful. Firstly, education, and then my own poetics. Those who are untrained in the fields of history of literature, literary theory, and poetics may skip this introduction. My first attempts at writing rhymes date back primary school. Yes, it was the time when the creative initiatives for the children were already led. Obviously, I took a part in those. I remember that every month we were told what to write about, and later I could find my first poems in the corridors. Unfortunately, except this memory, I have nothing more. Middle school. That's when I started writing more serious poetry. When I was 13, I took a part in the competition and I did it. My poem was published in the anthology, and as a part of the competition, I went to Kazimierz Dolny for a writing workshop. But these were not my only workshops. In this volume, we can find two poems from this period. The first one is about dance, and the second one is about the above-mentioned city. High school. I remember those times the best. The piece that opens this volume practically opened the door to a whole new life for me. I had already won a school competition in the first grade, and this fact gave me a pretty good reputation at school. My classmates made a hip-hop song out of it, and it was quite a good school, named by and under patronage of one of the most important Polish poets, Adam Mickiewicz. That's why I love Romanticism so much. I think so. I was the secretary in the school newspaper, and many of these poems were published in it. Two of them were still hanging on the corridor wall the last time I visited the school. There were also two other competitions. One not won, but the third place is also a nice distinction. The second one was a festival. The second poem of this volume is the winner of this festival. I still remember when I heard the news. Another district appreciated my work. Wow! This fact was so meaningful that I even had my own Polish lesson about poetry. Now I study Polish philology at the best university in Poland, the University of Warsaw. I say it in case someone has not guessed it yet. And this is where I can finish my educational biography. Only the earliest pieces are included in this volume. They all express something important to me, so I don't hide anything in a drawer. More recent poems will be found in the second volume, Student's Note, Open Eyes. Also, I was 19 years old when I was writing these poems. It's worth to remember during reading this book. The second part was written at the age of 1923. Throwing away inspired poems just because someone didn't like them, for God's sake, no. I prefer to look at them again and change them a bit. I have never changed them before, and maybe it's worth to refine those early rhymes. And studies really can open eyes. Well, what was Goethe doing? He was correcting and writing Faust his whole life, and Cyprian Norvit left several versions of the same poems. Why shouldn't I think about it too? Who said you can get inspired again while correcting? I've heard accusations that my strange punctuation is unnecessary. Yes, this form is quite common in the free verse type. It's extremely popular these days, but I have my own rules. I start with a capital letter, I don't put any marks at the end of the line, and it appears only when I believe it's necessary. The beginner is typical. Everything must start somewhere. And then there's a disturbance, evaluation. The ending must be clean and open. It can facilitate the interpretation. When I use my beloved enjambment, let the ones figure out what is going on their own. Rhymes. In the past, I used them more willingly, and now I come back to it again sometimes. But I prefer a free verse anyway. Rhyming seems to be a good way of building humor. The rhymes and the strophic structure don't always mean syllabic or accentual syllabic verse. In my case, you won't find jams, peons, etc. And graphic structure may also suggest something, a shape of something maybe. Studies teach a fresh look at well-known things, deepen knowledge, and wake people up in a humanistic way. I had my poetics founded a long time ago, but I have never realized it before. Of course, I was also coming to some things gradually. Adam Mickiewicz was educated in a classical style, and yet he was a significant poet in the epoch with a completely different aesthetics and poetics. Just like him, I started with composing poems closer to the syllabic, to go through free verse reflecting rebellion and chaos, and now I try to combine well-known poetics. It often depends on my mood, and I choose the model that seems to express the best what I want to convey. This is the secret of my style of writing, to combine, mix, create something new. I'm calling you, my poetic friends, to do the same. Maybe you write nice, you get praised, but what does that mean? Duplicating models. People like well-known formulas. Whereas well-known is delightful. Someone is criticizing you? Very good. You are original, and whereas different? Does not impress right away. Let me explain on the example of Cyprian Norvit, another great inspiration to me. Well, Romanticism is my beloved era and the most inspiring. Anyway, how can we describe Norwit's poetics? Imagination, generally known facts, realistic and often rational, completely different from the Romantics. At the same time, sometimes you can find romantic elements in his books. His inspiration was French Parnasianism, and that didn't convince people at the beginning. It was too different and new then. Today he is a well-known poet in my country, but he died in poverty. I would even say that similarly it was with Mickiewicz. The only difference is that he knew how to stand out. He did what he could and even more. He was also poor. I think about Parisian days he was a lecturer then, but somehow he lived in Paris anyway. So this is what Mickiewicz can teach us, to fight for our dreams. Yes, like Mickiewicz in his sonnets and Norwid in Vademecum, I like to use images that refer to certain feelings. Maybe speaking outright is also an interesting, unexpected procedure. Maybe a kind of grief of strangeness can also be a simplification. I think I've already said everything that I wanted in this part. For the sake of simplicity and transparency, the volume is divided thematically into chapters, just like a novel. Each begins with a quote that I think best suits the content. Chapters include poems from various periods of my education, which are the implementation on the various hymns I wrote about above. Now I can only wish you a pleasant reading. July 2019, Warsaw.